بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين وهو خير ناصر ومعين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Spiritual Perspectives, a program that is dedicated to spiritual perspectives, which provides a view and to the challenges of the modern world. This is our second program that we have. Last week we introduced the program, we discussed few things, and we'll go into greater detail. Just as a recap, what we have done so far, as we mentioned earlier, that Islam is faced with challenges. People from different countries, as we live in the West here, travel to the West in search of education and economical upliftment, so on and so forth. But once they land here, or once they come here, they are faced with challenges, and it is very much required to have a deeper understanding of the modern world in order to provide a response to our youth, and for them as well to practice their deen, as they are constantly bombarded with this alien culture. We pointed out to the flaws that exist within the Western civilization, or within the Western sort of ideology, which we said that the science have taken the place of God, and the qualities that that the science is identified with is basically the qualities of God. Tonight we will go further in looking into the detail of Islam and what Islam is, and does Islam is considered to be the religion or the revealed faith for Muslims, and then eventually look into the prophethood and also the revelation. In order to have a discussion on this topic, we have in our studio Sheikh Ahmed Hanif. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Welcome to Hidayat. And if we continue our discussion that we were having, and if you give a sort of like a brief recap, as we talked about Orientalist and Occidentalist. The Orientalist, they tend to look at Islam from a critical point of view, and usually the point of view of the Orientalist is read and accepted widely by Muslims themselves, and they themselves criticize their own deen. The Occidentalists are those who are from the West, and they study Western culture, and they are from the East, and they study the Western culture, and they provide that critique to the West, which they don't really like, because the person who criticizes has an upper hand compared to the object or subject that he is criticizing. Unfortunately, because of lack of understanding of many Muslims themselves, they get into the they themselves become the hurdle for a proper understanding of divine principles.
Mm-hmm. I think, we have very, very few Occidentalists in the Muslim world. And nobody knows of any, if one can ask, who is a prominent Muslim Occidentalist, or who might have Occidentalist tendencies, in terms of criticizing the modern world, or the modern West. We have very few people who do that. And I think one of the one set of criteria that is very important for that is to be well versed in one's own Islamic value system, to be well versed in the Islamic scholarly tradition, so that from that perspective you study the Occident, or you study the West, because as we said, studying is an act of not just acquisition of knowledge, but it's an act of acquisition of power. When you have a knowledge of something, you have a certain power over that thing. The fact that Muslims do not generally study the West from an Islamic point of view means that really they abdicate
Does living in the West considered as knowing the West?
Not necessarily. There are lots of Western people themselves who live in the West but do not know the West from the point of view of being able to objectify it as an object of knowledge, you see, and to examine the factors and laws that govern life in the society. You know, when we say a person living here knows here, what we mean is a person knows about living in a Western environment, you know, but their attitude towards that environment can be very, very subjective and not objective, and so therefore they would not be able to know the West as the way they should.
But these days, I mean, with the globalization, I mean, the Western values and Western culture is very much, indebted in the very East and Eastern cultures as well. I mean, it's more of that ideology that the West, which have alienated itself from deen, from religion.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, you have people. Look, take for example the claim of being an atheist, right? This is now part and parcel of the Western value system. Okay?
Being an atheist.
Being an atheist, okay? It's something fashionable to be an atheist. It's something, you go to university and you speak to a university student and you say, do you have a religion or do you believe in God? They're like, no, I don't believe in God. And they'll feel very
proud about
it because it's the in thing.
They are with the time.
Yes,
you know.
Okay?
Yeah.
But most of them never really got into depth
of what atheism
means and its arguments, etc.
And as a matter of fact, atheism itself is a religion.
Exactly. You see? So, I mean, so they do not have, as you would call it, a meta understanding of atheism.
Right. And that's where the problem comes about. You know, when you ask that, do you follow a religion? They say, no, I don't believe in God.
Right.
But not believing in God, if that is atheism, that itself is a religion.
Is a religion, okay?
Right.
So now, let's look at, for example, somebody in an Eastern country who went to, let's say, a Western university, okay? Or who watched enough movies that showed the people from democratic countries beating up the bad guys who are from non-democratic countries, right? And so they're exposed to a certain type of superficial propaganda.
Right.
Right? So they would, in the Eastern country, would call for democracy.
Right.
But they don't know exactly
what democracy is and what does that really mean. I mean, when you mention it's a fashion, our youth today, for example, the youth of today, when they portray themselves or when they say that I don't believe in God, they have no idea what they are saying. As you said, it's a fashion.
Right.
Because of the fashion they are saying that. But
Absolutely.
what is fashion?
Well,
once again, it's one of those modern Western things. Fashion is not based on that metaphysical reality or on traditionalism as
it's
such.
It's true, but fashion, I don't think fashion is particularly Western. You know, if you look at Islamic civilization in Iran, in Spain, classical Spain, and so forth, right? You did have trends. You did have, in fashion, old fashioned type of thing.
But what I'm saying that I mean, there's trends, there's fashion, in the sense that those fashionable things, if you want to call, or the trends, they are based upon certain principles.
Right.
They are not up in the air, that it comes and it goes.
Yes.
Like how we see today,
yes.
how fashion is defined as today. But, in the traditional society, in the Islamic civilization, if there was fashion, that fashion had some meaning to it.
Yes, had depth.
Had depth to it. It was for a certain reason.
Right.
For fulfillment of certain principle.
Yes.
That is carried out in a form of a clothes, in a form of a color. But today,
or even an idea.
An idea.
Yeah.
What do you mean by idea?
Okay. For example, let's take the idea of imama. Okay. You can have a Shia believing in imama because he belongs to that particular tradition. He belongs to that particular religious orientation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he or she might not be a thinker, might not be somebody who is able to penetrate this idea of imama. Okay? So what they get from it are certain simple notions that resonate with themselves. All right? And they would follow that on the basis of a kind of a fashion. Okay? Because I mean,
not on the basis of that being
deep thought.
Deep thought.
Yes.
But it is a fashion.
Yes.
Just like how, for example, you would find, to begin with, certain African Americans converting to Islam.
Yes.
Or certain people in the West naming their children, giving their children Muslim name.
Yeah. But I think you have fashion. You see, look, I think first of all we have to look at the process of the production of ideas, and the dissemination of these ideas in human society.
Right.
Okay. The people who produce ideas, okay, the people who create different ways of looking at things and so forth, okay, they create a body of thought, right, that is disseminated into the society. Then you have the ordinary man, the ordinary average man, okay,
right,
who might not be capable of generating these ideas.
But they follow it.
But who is capable of accepting certain salient points, outward aspects of these ideas and say, okay, yes, I am a Democrat, I am an atheist, I am a Shia Muslim, that type of thing.
I mean, nevertheless, the idea is something that is also based on true divine principles.
So you can have an idea that is based on falsehood,
exactly,
which doesn't last.
Right.
And so you might have a
but
fashion that follows that.
It might have the color of fashion.
Yes.
It might have the color of fashion. Not in the modern sense.
Yes.
Because we don't want the viewers to think imamology, imama as something that is like a fashion, which have no sort of, roots. So just want to clarify that, just want to make that distinction between the modern fashion, which comes and goes without any sort of roots, without having any solid spiritual, traditional, metaphysical basis. Just like how it comes and goes that we see, but fashion in the sense that it has a meaning. Now, if we further our discussion, as we are now, we kind of pointed out to the atheism, for example, the youth today. They say, I don't believe in God because it's a fashion.
They won't say because it's a fashion. They'll think they really don't believe in God because they thought about it.
Exactly. Yeah. And now, because do you think that because of the fact that they are unaware of what religion is all about? What does religion mean? How do you define religion? Because religion sounds like an outdated, term that people in the past follow. But we are saying that
it's no longer fashionable.
Exactly. It's fashionable to be religious. It's fashionable to be religious in the sense that if you think that not believing in God or atheism is a fashion, but that itself is a religion. You can't go outside these terms.
Right.
You have to be within these terms.
Right. However, when we look at the mind of a Westerner, okay, or mind of a modernist, okay, their idea of religion is a stereotype of something.
Right.
Okay, because they think in terms of stereotypes, right? They think in terms of very superficial people, but those people who are fashionable, okay, whether it's in the fashion of something that is true, or it's the fashion of something that is false, right? In both cases, they think about it in a very superficial way, So take for example a Muslim who might say, "I am not an unbeliever." Right? I'm not a kafir. Okay? Why does he say this? He says, because I define myself as a Muslim. But in practice, he worships other than God. Right? In practice, for example, when he prays, he's not thinking about God. Okay? He's thinking about something else. What his life revolves around Okay, might be his money, might be his bank account, might be his status,
Right,
you know,
right.
but not God.
Exactly. But he is praying. Yeah.
All right. So he is being superficial
Muslim.
as a Muslim, right? He is being Muslim as a fashion.
Right.
You see.
Yeah.
And I think that you find people in the West who are like this, with respect to.
Okay, I understand
their
what you're
atheism
trying
and
to
so
say.
on.
So what you're trying to say, to make it clear to our viewers, is that, as it is the trend not to believe, so, or they care less, caring less itself is a fashion. They don't really care about the rules and limitations and whatnot, the youth. So as it's the trend, or as it's the fashion, they will just say that, that they don't. But as in reality, perhaps there could be sometimes, one day out of a week, they say that no, it has to be God, for example, right? Yeah, it happens. But because of the influences, or they are too tired or something like that, they just say, okay, they are with a group of people, they say, okay, I don't believe in it, Yeah, you're right. So you have this similar pattern seen within Muslims themselves as well. When it comes to the Iman, to that in-depth Iman, the levels of Iman, the darajat of Iman, the reasons that they are worshipping. Are they really worshipping for the sake of, Tawheed, nearness to God, or is it the money, as you mentioned, for example, or for the health, and so on and so forth. So you have these similar patterns in the non-believers, or those who are the atheists as well, or those who do not believe in any concept or any reality. But there's pattern of this. You could categorize them as a belief system in itself.
Yes.
That could be categorized as a belief. Right? And it is categorized as a belief. But they don't like to be categorized as.
Yes.
They don't like to be sort of labeled that it is sort of like a religion that they are following.
Yes. I think it's quite rare for them to be categorized like this within a Western context, because in the Western context, the idea of religion is a very narrow concept.
The idea of the religion is a very narrow concept in the West.
Involves
I have a call.
A divinity.
Right. Yes, go ahead. Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Hello.
Assalamu alaikum.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम अस्सलाम वालेकुम सलमान बात कर रहा हूँ बर्मिंघम से.
Yes, welcome Salman.
Sorry, yeah,
how are you?
Yeah, absolutely fine. Just like just tuning in, and obviously I'm quite interested in the topic. I'm just got a few questions just to clarify.
Yes.
To start with. One thing, like when we say when we're talking about religion, what's basically religion is, how we define religion. Because if you're saying like atheist, if you're not, still is following a religion if you're not believing in God. So if any person got any idea, is following any idea, is it come under the religion, or religion is something else when we define it?
Right. Thank you. I think. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, and also like when we say like after the religion, when we say Islam, like we following Islam, we are Muslim, but is it Islam is absolute religion? On what basis we obviously, like, what are the proofs? How we prove to other like obviously communities and the religions as well, like Islam is absolute religion? On what basis we say that?
Well, thank you very much. I think anything else, Salman?
No, that's key two questions if you can clarify. Yeah.
Right, wonderful. Very interesting questions, definitely, because Muslims they claim that Islam is the final religion and it's the religion, right? Inna ad-deena indallahi al-Islam. Near God, the religion, as the ayah clearly says, is Islam, right? Any other faith is not accepted. So now, prior to that, which is more of a technical or more important question, as you were mentioning earlier, religion. How do you define religion? What is religion?
Well, basically, a religion is, on one level, anything that explains your life, anything that your life revolves around,
That becomes religion.
that's your religion.
Right.
Okay?
Whether that be documented or not.
Or not, exactly.
Right.
For example, we say La ilaha illallah. There is no God with a small g except Allah, or except God with a big G. All right? What is this ilah? Okay? This ilah
With a small g.
with a small g is anything your life does tawaf around. Okay? By which you measure your life. Okay? You say from that particular category, that particular thing, I'm a good person, I'm a bad person. Other people are good people or bad people, depending upon this. Okay? If I have more of this, I will be better off. I'll be better. If I have less of this, I would be in despair. You know what I mean? This is a religion. So it is what your elah is, what your small God is. Exactly.
For example, we use these terms, he exercises religiously.
Yes, exactly.
He worship
yes.
football.
Hey,
He worship football.
That's right. That's right.
Meaning, this word worship is used,
Yes.
is ibadat.
Yes.
So basically, that is his religion.
That's right. Yes, okay.
His life is revolving around that.
And so your God, Allah says in the Holy Quran, have you seen those who make their desires their God? Right?
Right.
So your life could revolve around your desires.
Right. So now this definition of religion is, widely accepted.
This is, I don't know if it's widely accepted, but I know Muslim
Among the
scholars,
philosophers in the
among
West.
Yes, in the West, I couldn't tell you.
Right.
Because I think, by and large, the idea of religion is basically, in the West, very much a stereotype. It must have a divine being,
right.
as central to that.
Yeah, in generally speaking, from a superficial point of view, that's how they,
Yes.
they understand religion to be, that
Yeah.
you're following some sort of
Some
creed.
kind of divinity,
Yeah.
right? However, you do have ideologies, political ideologies, okay, that people, many scholars in the West, call them a pseudo-religion. Take, for example, Marxism.
It's a pseudo-religion.
A pseudo-religion, where it governs a community, like a religion would, Take, for example, the communist regime in North Korea.
Right.
The rituals that go around the leadership, that revolve around the leadership.
It's like a religious
the
ceremony.
involvement of the mass of people,
Right.
in this type of worship
Right.
of their system and so forth.
Right.
So you have from a practice, an open practical type of thing, which has parallels or similarities with the practice of formal religion that revolve around divinity. They say yes, a political idea could be religiously applied.
So we could conclude here by saying that the spiritual perspective would be here, that a religion is something that the nafs revolve around.
Yes, the nafs requires
or a human being basically do circumvent that ideology, that thought, or whatever he's after.
It is necessary.
Yeah.
It is
so this is
necessary.
the metaphysical definition of a religion.
That's right.
Right.
Because if you don't have that central, fixed, absolute point around which your life revolves, life has no meaning. People become unhinged.
Right. And this, in the West, it would be purely individual. If the divine is taken away or certain moral principles are taken away, then it becomes purely individualistic. People is after their nafs, after themselves.
It could become purely individualistic or anarchic,
Right.
But you would find that, like for example, in America, what takes place, the place of divine religion, right, is the worship of the state. For example, the American flag is considered to be something holy. The American Constitution is seen like a holy book, a holy script.
Right.
Americans judge other people, okay, from the ethnocentric point of view of being Americans. How close you are to us in your way of life determines how advanced you are on the path of humanity.
And we are the one who would define what humanity is.
Exactly.
And whatever is, other than that, basically it's foreign.
Well, exactly.
And
it has a system that Western systems, Western liberal systems, for example, would say, according to this super religion, right? According to this higher religion, the religion of the state, okay, you have the right, and the freedom to engage your nafs, to revolve around your own nafs.
Right.
Okay? So it's like, one big religion, in the middle is the state, right? And around those state revolve individuals who
revolving around themselves. And
right?
then revolving.
Yeah.
So basically, it's like a pseudo freedom and pseudo choices been given, and the choices that they are making is already state beneficial.
Yes, it's determined for them.
It's determined for them. Yeah.
So for example, if you look at the news, it doesn't encourage independent, critical thinking. Okay, it channels your thinking. Right? It channels your critical ability,
right?
Okay, to criticize what the system wants you to criticize,
right?
For example,
exactly, and to accept it absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
What they have to give, and this is it. And to the extent that if you criticize it, you have the right to do so, but it is not. But what the decision that have been made, or that which has been decided, is better for you.
Yeah.
So you got to take it.
Exactly, and you criticize it according to its own principles.
Right.
So you criticize the society from the point of view: is it free enough for me to engage more with my nafs?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And now the second question of Brother Salman: Islam is as totalitarian. Islam as the religion. Now that's how it's been introduced and it's been known, and that's how Muslims tend to behave, and it really affects their dealing, their transactions, their behavior pattern.
Yeah.
Right. Can you perhaps shed some light on that?
Yeah, I think it's a very, very good point that he made, in terms of Islam as being, the word totalitarian is a negative word, right? But being a total religion. I think one way of looking at it is that when we look at the word religion itself, okay?
Deen.
Not deen, but religion, the word religion itself.
Is a good translation for deen and religion?
I don't think so. This is what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
When we look at the word religion itself,
yes.
The word religion implies a type of practice, in this case, right? It's a belief, but a type of practice that goes alongside other practices that are not religious, right? So take, for example, Christianity, all right? In Christianity, the type of practice is prayer, contemplation of the individual in relationship to God. Okay? But in terms of, let's say, for example, economic activity or even political activity, these are considered to be outside, at least in contemporary Christianity, outside the purview of religion.
Right.
So religion is something that is separate from the rest of life. Okay.
And it should be kept separate.
Yeah. So you would find that, for example, some religions would even go so far, okay, as to advocate denial of certain things that we normally consider to be essential in life. For example, sexual relationships, right? For example, getting involved in business. For example, amassing wealth. Okay, they would separate religion from these things. Right? And that goes to also to a religious attitude. You find Muslims also thinking like this sometimes, right? Now, when we look at the religion of Islam, Islam does not define itself as, let's say, a madhab. Islam itself, it might be comprised of madhahib, okay? But Islam itself does not define itself as a school of thought among many.
But rather, it is the way of life.
It's a way of life, right? It is life itself.
And how you live.
Exactly.
With the principles of Islam.
Exactly, right? In a totalitarian sense.
Right.
You know, there's nothing in your life that is outside of Islam.
And you live full.
You live a full life.
You live a full
Yes.
life. Right.
You see?
Right.
And these... and
So
and
that quality makes it deen. That
Exactly.
quality makes it
right, which
absolute,
we translate
so
as
to
a
speak.
way of
Right.
life. Yes.
Right, right. So, I mean, it's a very deeper way of understanding Islam here.
Yes.
And the superficial way of understanding Islam to be it.
Mhm.
You know, Islam is the last religion, and, you know, in a more of a fundamentalist sort of way, in the negative,
Yeah.
you know, the stereotypes of fundamentalism I'm talking about
Mm.
here, not in that fundamental, in the true
Right.
sense. So Islam is the way of life. So that becomes of the absolute nature.
Yes. Yeah. And also what helps make Islam also both absolute and inclusive is that Islam sees all religion as Islam.
As part of it, right?
You're not
so it's not
not as part of Islam. All religions,
within
all true religions
right. Yeah.
as expressions of Islam. Yeah.
Within Islam,
Exactly.
right? So I mean, it's not like, you know, Christianity, Judaism, Christianity, you know, Hinduism. Oh, Islam,
Yes.
and Islam is
Yes.
no, but it's all Islam.
That's right. So when Christianity looks at Judaism and says, for example, yes, Judaism is true. It's a true religion.
Right.
Okay?
Christianity would say
but
that.
Christianity is not like Judaism.
Right.
What Christianity does is it relativizes itself.
Right.
It says that we are one religion and Judaism is another one.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Whereas Islam comes after Christianity.
Right.
All right? Islam of the practice of the way of the Prophet Muhammad
Yes.
sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it says this Islam is itself Christianity and Judaism.
Right.
Right? Which is what makes them viable religions, the Islam in it.
So the essence of all adyan becomes Islam.
Exactly.
The essence of every religion is nothing but Islam
Right.
itself. Right. So that's sort of absoluteness.
Yes.
Rather than, you know, categorizing it.
Categorizing.
Do you think that this categorization, which perhaps leads to open our another discussion, which is because of the individual or because of the prophet, if you want to say in the religious term, who have brought that mazhab or that deen.
Mm-hmm.
You see, like Christianity, the central sort of, the whole religion is based on crucifixion.
Yes.
So is it because of that, or that is something else?
I think this is one of the things that also distinguishes Islam from other religions, right? Other religions, for example, like Christianity, revolve upon a particular act, a particular event in history. For example, the crucifixion of Christ as the central tenet for salvation of human beings, right? Or they can revolve around an ancient people,
Individuals, basically.
No, a people, right? Like the Jews, for example.
Right.
Where
Okay.
it
The
revolves
whole.
around their whole history.
Right.
A lot of religions, have this relativistic aspect to themselves.
Yeah. Particular.
Right. But Islam, for example, is not called Mohammedanism.
Mohammedanism.
Okay, even though it appears in Western history as a
Mohammedanism.
pejorative against
Right.
or an insult. to
Because they
Muslims.
are because the Orientalists categorize religion with personalities,
Yes,
with,
based upon their own
with
subjective
people.
experience,
You know,
yes.
that's what they think. That's what religion means. You know, Christianity with Christ, Judaism with the Jewish history. You know, that's how they think religion is. But they
Right.
haven't really understood what Islam is, and that's why they call it as Mohammedanism.
I think they have understood it. I
But
think,
they don't-
Yeah, the Holy
right.
Quran itself, right, calls this religion Islam,
Mhm.
right? So I think it's basically an insistence on relativizing Islam. Why they call Islam Mohammedanism,
Right.
right? In the past, they don't do it anymore.
They don't do it anymore. Yeah.
But yeah.
Right. So what's the reason behind that, you said?
Well, I think the reason behind that is to deny Islam its universality.
Deny
Basically,
Islam is
yeah.
universality. To be associated with a personality.
To associate with a personality.
Yeah,
yes.
like for example, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and who was an Arab,
Yes.
who lived during such and such
Right.
period. You know, who was from the Middle East.
Right. So
right.
it relativizes it.
Right.
Right. This is how.
So this is the modern and Western understanding of Islam. And that's what they want to do.
The Orientalist
and the reason,
understanding of
Orientalism.
Islam, yes.
And I mean, when we are saying Orientalists, means that the Western have accepted this ideology, this understanding,
Yeah.
and that's how they are functioning. And as they are functioning in that fashion, the youths of today are accepting that. Oh yeah, it belongs to that Middle East period. It's old, you know, for that period. That Quran, the laws is for that society, not for
Exactly.
us in the West, right?
Exactly.
That's what they are saying.
Yeah.
But they haven't really understood what Islam is. It is not Mohammedanism, and what Islam as what is the definition of religion, you know, from the Islamic point of view, from the metaphysical, from the divine sort of perspective,
Right.
you know, spiritual perspective, you know, what religion mean, and what Islam, when it's saying that it is the essence of all faith.
Yes.
You know, it's a way of life, you know, rather than as categorized as a religion of Middle East,
Right.
of Arabs, brought by an Arab.
Right. Basically, it is the religion, the primordial religion of mankind.
Right, the primordial religion of mankind. And it developed basically.
That's right.
You know, from Adam till the last prophet.
Right.
Now, I'll just coin the question and we'll take a break. You know, how Islam treats other faiths. You know, we see within Islam the categorization as well. These are Ahl Kitab, these are Mushrik, these are... So Islam is saying it's all inclusive, it's including everything, but at the same time having that distance. You know, that giving that. And other religions have also seen after Islam. Other religions also came after Islam. You know, as Islam was not the last religion. You know, other religions also came. So we'll look into that right after the short break. We hope that you stay with us. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Thank you.